Can you see, like, there, the day, like how misty it is and how I can't. Anyway, so it's very misty. It's been raining and it's grey, but it's the mist that's beautiful. So all the trees are kind of like there is a glaze over them. And so being being captivated by that view, by what I just described to you, by simple meteorological occurrence, right? Being captivated by being feeling drawn to it, feeling in awe of it. To me, that is a form of spirituality. So in this video, that's what I want to talk about, spirituality, my own personal spirituality, cosmology. I mean, I'm not here to make definitions and to be certain about anything, because I don't like that, in general, and certainly when it comes to spirituality. And definitely while we're in the Pisces season, as per my last couple of videos, and while we have Saturn in Pisces, which I wonder, please let me know, or let me know anything. Let me know about your own spirituality after you heard mine, or even without hearing mine. But also, like, how have you noticed, and I certainly have, which is one of the reasons I'm doing this video, is that I noticed that since Saturn entered Pisces, I have become more aware of my own lack of, or even, when there is no lack of practice, spiritual practice. And I've been questioning, like, what does it mean to me? Why do I do it, or why do I not do it? And so this video is going to be, it's inspired by that search that I have found myself more intensely than previously. I had phases, as you will hear me speak of some of them in the past, where I would be very intensely dedicated to this subject. But yeah, this is the latest one, and I put it down to Saturn in Pisces. So I want to start by saying how I understand what spirituality is. Well, it's a practice of, let me just see how I wrote, a practice that connects us to something that's bigger than ourselves. And it is also a belief. I mean, it is rooted in a belief that there is something bigger than ourselves, that we are part of. And so there's that I take that as a definition. I Googled it and it said that as a definition, so I'll take that as a given. And it makes sense to me, I agree. And so I was like, so at the same time, I know, and you may have heard me in some of my videos, I mentioned that I'm not spiritual, or rather that my spirituality isn't maybe what most people consider it. I don't have a regular practice. I don't do rituals. I don't, in a way that I would clearly define it as spiritual practice, right? So I was like, okay, so there's that part of me, and there is this definition of spirituality, and I very much, since I can remember, knew, not just believed, I know that there is something more than me. There is something bigger than us. So I think in this video, as I'm going to share stuff with you, it'll be clear to you as well. And it is kind of clear to me that my spirituality is, I am spiritual, even though just like, I don't know, I don't like the word somehow because of all the connotations that I don't recognize myself in. Not because I have a problem with spirituality. God, no, absolutely not. The G word, of course not. But I don't recognize myself in what most people consider spirituality. Anyway, so you'll see me, using maybe different words. And so briefly, since I can remember, I was binging on fairy tales, ghost stories, which are about, like magic, right? Or magical, or something that's, like dragons and witches and whatever, right? And ghosts, right? And all that. I also, since I've heard the word, I think, or whatever, that wasn't probably as early, or maybe it was, aliens. I'm fascinated. I still, today, I'm like, where are they? Come and see me. But more to the point that it was like a given. Like, I was, oh my God, of course there are aliens. Of course. I mean, who is so, I would maybe then say stupid, but not nowadays. I would maybe, who's that limited in the worldview, cosmos worldview, that they think we're the only, how arrogant of us who don't believe in aliens, extraterrestrial life, basically. That's what I mean by aliens. how arrogant of us to think there is no life on other planets. And so, and then there's another aspect. So I grew up in the communist world up until the 90s, and now it's whatever, it's not communist anymore, but it's, I suppose, whatever it is, I don't know, I don't live there anymore for a long time now. But there was that as well, that religion and God were not part of my bringing up, which suits me, obviously. But funnily, my not too far back, so my grandparents' parents, so my great grandparents, right, were on both sides, there was at least one, there was a priest. So we're talking Orthodox priest, Orthodox Christianity. And so anyway, so funnily enough, right? But anyway, so I grew up in that world which religion wasn't part of it. Familially, yes, but I wasn't still aware of it because they weren't alive, and and so there is that aspect, but there is also this piece about my attitude towards God, meaning that, even I studied history of art in God, I knew of God as a concept. And I very early on, like really early on, like pre-teens, decided that, or again knew that I was not an atheist. I always disliked atheists. I'm sorry if you are one, forgive me, or don't forgive me anyway. But I don't, because to me it's like the same side, sorry, the other side of the same coin. So it's a belief. You cannot say there is no God. I don't think. You cannot, you just cannot know. If you just cannot know, that's the piece, right? You believe there is, and you don't, right. So, and to me, it was as belief. It's a belief system, and so the atheists have a problem with believers in God, but they're believers too that there is no God. It's the same. So a lot of people in my close vicinity and family extended of all, they are atheists, so I don't go there. But I'm not interested. At the end of the day, I'm not bothered about their view. So what I was, and decided so early on, that I'm an agnostic, which really means, and I love that, and that's what I mean when I said earlier that I don't know, whatever I said earlier, which is I don't know there is God. I don't know if there is. I don't know. I actually don't like the idea. I never did. Today I don't. 50 years ago, 45 years ago, didn't. The idea of this like white bloke, bearded, sitting on a cloud, judging us all. Nope. Don't like the idea of that. So I will choose not to believe that. And so this is a thing. It's like all the beliefs, what we believe in speaks of us. Says so much about who we are and our values, right? So I refuse to believe. As a person, I cannot believe there is a God like that. That there is something like that, God, right? Whatever. So agnostic was my. I like that when I discovered them. There was a word for it, right? I was like, I'm an agnostic, right? So I don't believe in a God, one singular deity, and not certainly the kind of Christian kind that decided, or maybe not even just Christian. I'm a Philistine when it comes to religions. So there was that piece. There was also a piece about organized religion that I really had a problem with. And there was a video which I now removed because, it was kind of, I'll probably be talking about that as Pluto in Aquarius gathers speed and all that. But there is a group wound, so-called, and the group dynamics are just, until we are clean and clear and strong as individuals, there is no healthy group. It's as simple as that. You can quote me on it. You can crucify me for it if you don't like my view on that. But there is no group, particularly when it's a big group, particularly when it's like a denomination, like belonging to a denomination, even to a church, physical building and the community around that group is healthy. If I'm trespassing on some of your wounds, forgive me, as in, again, like, I don't particularly want to upset anyone, but I just, we all have to be within that group, healthy, strong individuals, so that there is no toxicity, there is no leaking, there is no all kinds of other stuff, stickiness and blah, blah, blah. And so that's why anything organized group-wise, I'm always very, And then religion, an extra layer to it. But it's the organized piece that I have a aversion towards. I don't trust, basically. I don't trust. That's the thing. I don't trust that. I'll tell you what I don't trust. I don't trust that we can be, I think we can be trusted with ourselves to a point. And but that, I mean, we can be, even when we make mistakes, even when we regret what we trusted ourselves with, right? You follow what I mean? Even then, I think the trust is deeper. It's the soul trust, right? That we needed to go through something, however painful and difficult and tragic even, or whatever. That was in a Pluto video of mine. I talked about that. So in that sense, I trust that we can be trusted with ourselves. But I do not trust that we can be trusted with each other. I do not trust that. I don't think we know. I don't think we know. Just look at parenting. I mean, how, the most benevolent, the most loving, the most innocent in a way parents still mess up their kids because it's just like a realm we have yeah. So I'm gonna end on that one, because that would take me to another completely different tangent. Okay, so let me see where I got to. There was also this piece about, this is all, I'm in my teens. This is all in my teens that I had been like. I knew this, I had these views and beliefs, and I still have them, the ones I'm sharing with you now. I also knew from physics, that energy never disappears, right? And that's how I had this, like, that was my attempt as a child, like really as a child, like this is pre-teens, I tell you, where I would try to convince whoever wasn't agreeing with me that there is science that says the energy doesn't ever go away. So what happens with our energy? Isn't that soul, like our energy, that where does it go? It goes somewhere. It's like, that part of us doesn't die, and there is something of us in the energy that leaves us, that's us, our energy, and then it goes whatever, right? So that was my attempt to kind of discuss and convert people into believing into soul. Life after death, I absolutely, like, as far as I can remember, again, like, I just love the idea. That was just my sense of, again, I want to believe that. It's like, it feels right. It feels, so maybe this is my South Node heavily aspected, like Uranus, Jupiter, Uranus, right? Like, it's the closest to my South Node. South Node is the past lives that you are bringing into this life. So Uranus, like, I was a genius once upon a time, many years ago, many lifetimes rather ago, meaning I must know, like, that part I must know, and it's to do with the lifetime, the past lives, right? Where Uranus, the genius, is the progressive thinker, right? Anyway, and I have Pluto and Jupiter there, so I think that's probably why. But I just always knew there is life after death, like, meaning that we come back, whatever that looked like, that we are not, reincarnation, I suppose, is a better word. Again, I don't know where I got that from. Maybe it was fairy tales or something. And then astrology came when I got into my teens. And I think there's a video about that. I'm not going to go into that. And so astrology, I often question that, because astrology is really mathematics and in its name, logos, astrologos, astrology, logos, right? It's science in Greek. So I don't think, which is probably why I love it. I'm Pluto in Virgo. So one of the things that I felt like I was a rebel when it comes to my generation of Pluto in Virgos, is we are the generation of atheists, because we're the furthest away from the Pisces, and we really struggle. And all of these people I mentioned in my life who are atheists are Pluto in Virgo. And it's like I have a Saturn in Pisces person. I think, did I mention her in one of my videos? One of my old friends, and she's a Pluto in Virgo South. She's so much Virgo, but also so much Pisces, and she's just like, it's nonsense. And she's a poet. I mean, it's like, I don't know. Anyway, so we have a thing about science. It's Mercury, right? And it's Virgo. It's Earth. It's discernment. It's like, you gotta prove it. You gotta, I'm not gonna just believe. I just need to understand. I need to be smart about this. I need to be intelligent about this. Discerning. I'm not gullible. I mean, I am personally, can be. But as a Pluto in Virgo, as an archetype, isn't. So of course that would be the batch of atheists. I'm not saying we are the only ones. I think Pluto in Leo possibly as well, because they were the gods. We are not that, like, Virgo doesn't think it's a god, definitely, but Leo does, right? So I think Pluto in Cancer were probably the last batch that were non-atheists, but the two batches of Plutos, are definitely atheists. And so, but I knew that there must be something, that's what I mean. It's so arrogant, and it is. It's arrogance, really. And you wouldn't think it of Virgo because it's not arrogant, but it's, and in a way, I suppose it's less arrogant than with Leos because it's about like just wanting to be sure. I don't know. So maybe it's not as arrogant. Nevertheless, so there was this, I was always like, there must be something more than, science is not the God, right? So we're calling science God, right? So anyway, so that was my teens. And then, but none of this was a practice. And this is where I struggle with calling myself spiritual. None of it is a practice. It's like, I don't know. I mean, astrology is a practice definitely for myself, but because I'm not sure if it's a spirituality in the way of like believing in like having a ritual. I don't call it sacred. I don't know. So it is a practice, sure, astrology in terms of, but it's only for myself, and that's fair enough, right? So that's okay. But it was always about trying to understand myself. So how's that? But I'm using something that's bigger than myself to understand myself. So maybe that's where I'm losing that piece of spirituality. I don't surrender. I don't do these things that kind of the final step, the Piscean piece. And I have North Node in Pisces, which is exactly why probably anyway. Anything, or our North Node, unless we have a lot of stuff on it and we have nothing on our South Node, we are probably far more comfortable going in that direction than in my case. I have stuff on my North Node, but I have far more on my South Node. And so I'm just not doing Pisces piece. There is that sense of Pisces that is just, there is the sacredness, there is the magic, there is like suspending something, suspending belief. I don't know, is that the word? No, maybe that sounds wrong. But like just like trusting, even when you don't understand. I understand astrology. Oh, I understand astrology. So it's not spirituality in that way. You get what I mean? I haven't relinquished control, and I think that's the piece with spirituality that I don't have. And it's I know it's something I need to practice more, and I'm doing it in different ways, or I think I am. So that's that. And then come my teens, and in my teens I read this book. So I was reading fairy tales up until, I don't know, probably some so-called early teens. Since I started reading at the age of like really early, like 4 or something. I don't know, like really early. They always said that I was like an early reader. And fairy tales were just like my staple. And then in my teens, I was more like, Hesse, Hermann Hesse, Dostoevsky and all that. And I came across this book, and I read this book by William Somerset Maugham. He's a British English author from the 1920s, I think. And the book is called The Razor's Edge. And essentially it's a book, amongst other things, it's a search for meaning and for the self, a sense of inner fulfillment. This, actually, is he American? Because maybe he's American. Oh my God. Okay, maybe he's American. But yeah, it's a story about an American young guy, who I think was born into wealth. I'm pretty sure, it's been a while, obviously. And then just doesn't feel like that's his choice, doesn't choose wealth, he wants to travel and find himself kind of thing, right? He doesn't want to just like live off his dad's stuff and whatever. So he travels and goes to India and all that. And then he ends up sitting on the mountain, and it's kind of like a cliche of how Buddhism spirituality is and blah blah. But at the time, that was my first encounter with it, and I was absolutely enamored with that journey, and the fact that when he came down from the mountain, he was enlightened, let's say, and he went back to his hometown or whatever, and ended up being a mechanic. Refused to, or I'm pretty sure, if you read it, if you know better, remind me. But this is my recollection, right? So. And he ended up being a car mechanic. So he just didn't want the wealth, the money. And anyway, and so I just loved it. Loved that search, how he was searching the meaning, the search for meaning, right? And that was like an introduction to Buddhism. And then 20s, and then I was like, no, I was into partying. Late teens and 20s, were definitely party time, and then 30s were like getting serious about work and earning a living and career and that kind of stuff. So astrology was always there, but I was utterly uninterested. But all along, as I started at the beginning of this video, I was into art profoundly, always, like as an artist myself, like creating all kinds of different things, including writing and poetry and physical paintings and all that stuff, music, dance, blah, blah, singing. But also like awe. I'm always in awe of nature, of cosmos, of stars, and to me that is a form of, like I say, spirituality. So that's obviously present throughout my life, always. Solitude, like I adore being alone. Like I live alone, even though I'm married. I mean, I spend most of my days alone because my husband's at work and I don't work for the last 3 years. I haven't worked in a kind of 9-to-5 job. So I love being with my own company. It's not even with my own company, it's just with the silence. I just love spending time in nature. So all of that to me is a spirituality, connecting with something, transgressing, going beyond myself, my little self, right? So, and then came the 40s. In fact, what came was the Uranus opposition. And Uranus opposition happened for me age 40, 41, 42. So it was like a long transit because that's how it was. And it was a proper awakening. Like I took 180 turn. Like I went from always being skeptical when it came to spirituality in that kind of more conventional sense. I was agnostic, but I was skeptical. I was like, I can't just believe in something. I mean, except for everything I just told you, that there must be more. But what that is, I couldn't believe in, because then I'm just picking something like, okay, I'll believe there is this and this. So I believe there is more, but what that more is, I couldn't settle on. That piece felt like a fiction. And I love fiction, but it's fiction for me. So I couldn't choose whether it's one deity, one God, Jehovah, whatever, Jesus, Buddha. Buddha was a living person, right? Like Jesus was and all that. But anyway, do you see what I mean? I couldn't decide what that thing I believe in is, because I couldn't settle, I don't know what it is, but there is something, right? And so, but when Uranus opposition happened, and I didn't even try. So I literally had this a 6 months free. I was working, I had a different kind of work situation at the time, and I had always 6 months breaks because I'd worked for a year, then 6 months anyway. And then I ended up doing some diet, which was really good one for me. So I was really physically active and fit. And somehow, so I was almost detoxing without any intention. I was aware of Uranus opposition, but I wasn't really, that was, I don't know, I didn't really, it wasn't like I was planning it, I wasn't planning for it or anything. And I was, healthy and all. So that was like a form of cleansing. Again, it felt like I needed to do it. It wasn't like I was, forcing myself to do it. And then one day I was shopping somewhere in a library, in a bookshop, and I went for this book. I literally just picked, it was a spirituality section. And I remember kind of going, I don't know, it was almost like my body was taking me elsewhere, but something caught my attention in that section. I went for it and I just picked the book out, and it was Barry Long? Is it possible that's his name? I have one of his books upstairs, but I can't remember now. Anyway, it's this Australian guru, and it was about meditation. And I read all of his books, and then I went into Osho, and I know Osho's controversial, doesn't matter. I adore his writing and what he taught me, and what that Barry Long guy also taught me, it was just something just exploded in me. And those 6 months I meditated for 2 hours at a time. I experienced things that are, so I had a kind of my Pluto in Virgo was satisfied. I experienced, it was a first-hand experience of something beyond. And it was, I don't want to even put words to it, there are no words to it. Neptune, Pisces, remember in my last videos, if you watch them, I talk about that. Pisces, you can't bring these things into words. The way that they actually, it's almost like tarnishing them or devaluing them, diminishing them. Not maybe devaluing, but diminishing. And so I was just and it wasn't like I was converted. I wasn't even sure what I was converted into, but something completely energetically changed for me. It's from that point that I started to be vocal and open about being I wasn't an astrologer because I wasn't doing charts for other people. That would make me an astrologer, I think. but I was open about my astrology practice, and then I started actually a few years into it, to kind of like, okay, I'm gonna charge and all that. So the whole thing started rolling out, and I became more like tarot, and all of that stuff just burst open, and I opened myself to it, and it was wonderful. It still is wonderful. I love all of it. Still, it's still with me. Everything that I on that journey have learned is still part of me. I modified it for my own needs and preferences and loves and all that stuff. But still, I don't have this practice of like daily ritual of like connecting with that spirit, right? I don't do daily tarot. I go through phases, like I would have a month or even 3 months where I'm doing daily tarot. And then I stop. And then astrology, it's the most consistent thing. Even that isn't every day. Like today, I can't remember where moon is and what. Well, it doesn't matter. Right? I don't check my chart today or anything. But that one is a weekly. I check in at least weekly. And so you see, none of it is like people, like far more devout or devoted people, spiritual people, would have something daily. My only daily thing is to have alone time. I need to have alone time. And in that alone time, I can often do nothing, or I can read, and that's the only thing. And self-reflection. Self-reflection is not just daily, it's hourly, depending on what I'm doing. But those are the only things that are like consistent and frequent in the sense of daily. And so but to me, that's me checking in with myself, like finding center in myself, like without the alone time. Like when I don't know, you wouldn't know, but I spent a month recently with my dad, living with him, and it was, I love him and everything, but it's just like, and I had to in the morning, and with my mum, and then she had to go somewhere anyway. And then in the morning, I usually take at least an hour to myself, but there I took at least 2 hours. It's sometimes 2.5. Because I needed that capsule of time to be my own before I enter the day with them, which is nothing like my day. It's like, kind of, chaotic and whatever. Not necessarily easy or pleasant at times either. So I needed, so that is me connecting with myself. But like I said, not with the spirit, not with something beyond myself. But I read the Pluto in Virgo. I knew this, but since Saturn has been in Pisces, this particular particular paragraph really stood out to me. That's what I mean by Saturn in Pisces. It really brought this up, the opposition to my Pluto. They're not officially in opposition, but they are by sign. And it's that Pluto in Virgo is skeptical by nature, the generation. Like our soul just doesn't trust, because we have experienced the abuse and of those religions and all of that, maybe more than some other signs. And we were the victims. I don't mean to be like a boohoo or anything, but Pluto in Virgo is kind of like, Virgo as an archetype is more inclined to be subservient, so therefore to allow themselves to be a victim. That's what I mean. And so, and it says that we distrust religion, we distrust spirituality, we distrust Pisces, right? The furthest away. So the opposite to your Pluto would be applied to your own Pluto, and you might find some resonance. So the opposite side is that the furthest away, that actually is essential and necessary, but because it's Pluto, it's obsessively in that, in my case Virgo, is like, but with age I have softened, as I just described. But this piece about the skepticism and how, and I read this and I was like laughing and crying at the same time. Like only in crisis we turn to God, to spirit, right, for help, to this, we give up control, we surrender our beliefs, and we just, but then as soon as we are out of the crisis, we then go back to our skeptical atheist, even though I'm an agnostic, but it's probably still within the domain of Virgo more than Pisces ways. And I was like, wow. And so this is what I spoke about when I said about Pluto in my videos, is that with Pluto, it's like the intensity, the pull to being in that Pluto place is is incredible. It's like we can't, not that we can't fight it. Well, yeah, we can't fight it. We have to kind of do something else with it. I'm not even sure how, what. So in one sense, I don't have an answer to this. I'm still not feeling spiritual a la Pisces, because I don't know how to relinquish some. I don't know. I don't even know what it is. I don't know. But this is going to be a first video. I'm going to have another video because I want this video to not be too long, much longer than 30 minutes. Because the other is like where I'm at now and how I'm, in a way, my answer to maybe why I am the way I am regarding spirituality. So, but let me know what you think below.